Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Brian.
And I'm Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share our thoughts and perspectives on marriage.
We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. Now, let's get right into the show.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, kicking it with us, having a conversation. Today, we are going to talk about giving without expectations. We're just going to run through our thoughts on that. People that have a heart to give, those that don't have a heart to give. Why can we? So just rock with us and make sure you take some notes and give us feedback that we're going on the right path.
Also, we want to invite you to hit us up on our social media platforms, mainly Instagram. Let us know how you're feeling about our episodes over there. If you want to continue the conversation, or if you want to just give us an idea, you can do that there. Also, you can hit us up on our website, marriageistuffer.com. There, you can request to be a guest, give us ideas, or see all of our archived episodes. We're also trying to create a community. You can do that on Facebook, searching Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips. Again, ideas, requests, or just be a part of the community and soak up some of this real conversation we're having. So, giving without expectation, man. I like the idea of it. I think I can see the benefits to it, but in your opinion, is this real? Like, is it something you try to practice?
I think it's is it possible? I know I was thinking as we're writing it, like, is it possible? If so, how? I think it's a level based on your personality and your experience and how you grew up, right? Some people just giving in general is very easy. And whether it's in you saw it modeled, or that's just how you're made, it can be easier to give. Now, the expectation part of that is also, I think, a learned behavior. Because if you truly understand that giving is for the person and that you generally get unintended benefits anyway, like you can go without expecting what's going to happen once I give this. But I don't know if that's something that is taught or modeled often.
I hear you. For me, it was definitely both taught and modeled. I may have brought it up before that, when my mother passed, I had a bunch of friends, acquaintances come out of the woodwork and share stories with me of how she gave to them through time and listening and those types of things that I wasn't even aware of. I saw my own examples of her doing that, through fostering children over my childhood, um, her time in the church, and just spending time with people. She worked for a local organization called CEO. It stands for Commission on Economic Opportunity. So even through her work, she was, very giving of herself and, county resources, or however they get funded, maybe state resources. And then my grandmother as well worked for the Head Start organization.
Mm-hmm.
Loved to help children, but again, throughout the church, throughout her friends and family, I always saw her being willing to step up and volunteer, give her time, and even, give money in some scenarios. So for me, it just to reflect on it is just a natural part of my life, right? And I promise at some point we'll tie this to marriage, but I find still the question, is it realistic for us to not have expectations when we give. And the reason for that is because everything in our society is transactional, right? And I
Hmm.
think that it is our nature as humans to give and receive. I think for some of us, though, it is more natural to be able to give without the expectation of getting something in return. Um, and I would also argue that it is a learned skill. Do you have anything else to add to that?
I definitely agree. It's learned as you were going through your examples. Uh, I was reflecting on my own, but also thinking about other people that I know who didn't have those examples, right?
Mhm.
If you're in a place where you've just been in survival mode your whole life, like trying to figure out like moment to moment, that giving space um, isn't as natural because you're just trying to figure out how to live, right?
Right.
And if that's how you grew up, once you get past that mindset of survival mode, that's really the only time you can even be introduced to a giving with just a non-transactional um, thought process, right? Because if you're in a, my mind just went blank. Oh, if if you're in survival mode, like you're trying to figure out how to live. What can I take? What do I need? It's more need based. But when you're in a giving mindset, it's more how can I help or what can I let go of? Does that make sense? Like it's a different mindset.
It does. I would argue this though. Most of the time that I had with my mother, and put this into, just to put this into perspective, single parent household. She did not make a lot of money, and she raised two large men. So we were always eating, right? So a lot of her life as we were, coming of age was survival mode. And she still found resources to be able to give. Right. And so, and I even see it on social media sometimes. They do these social experiments where they come upon a homeless man and, ask, hey, I see you have some food there. Would you be willing to share it with me? And it's surprising to me how often they do, or, whatever the scenario is. There's a couple different ones, but it's amazing to me how often that homeless person is willing to share what little resource they have. Right. So I think maybe sometimes it's just based on that experience of knowing that there is a way for me to get more. Maybe I don't have it right now, but if someone is struggling more than I am, then maybe it behooves me to give them a little of what I have. I don't know.
You
Have
know
you have
that
you seen any
no,
of those?
that makes perfect sense. I've definitely seen that and walked through that. So yeah, thanks for saying that. Bringing me back around on that. That's a
It's
different
all good, man.
perspective, and that's generally what I've seen most. Now I'm reflecting, but that is
And
generally how it goes. Yeah.
the funny thing for me is you have to be careful because I know personally I've given of myself so much in some scenarios that I've put myself in a bad situation, right? Like
Right.
specifically with money. Um, someone would call and say, "Hey, do you have X amount of dollars that I could borrow?" And typically, I know I'm probably not going to see that money again,
Mm-hmm.
but I have in the past not paid bills to be able to give someone else money, right? And it kind of goes back to that story I was sharing. I knew that I would have more money come in and I could pay the bill, albeit it would be late or paid
Mm-hmm.
late. but I knew that my resources would be replenished at some point, and then I'd be able to catch up. But anyone in their right mind should probably not do that.
Right.
you know,
Right.
so there are, that's all just to say that I've been at times generous to a fault.
Hmm. No, that makes sense. So we're saying it's possible to give without expecting,
Mhm.
but what? Why?
I think it makes life a little easier, actually, because if you're someone who likes to give or enjoys to give, not having an expectation on your giving uh, creates an area where you're less likely to be disappointed by people you care about, right? And I want to try to start tying this to marriage, right? So if we could start thinking about some of the things that we would give to our wives or even to our families and friends, right? Because there's been times where we've been asked for money, and that now has become a conversation with my wife, like, hey, we have extra money. This person is asking for X amount of dollars. Are you okay with us giving this money with the expectation that we may not get it back? Right. So, and the other thing is like, what are some of the things that we give to our wife without the expectation of like a transactional return? Right. Um, which which kind of makes it hard because there's always some things that we desire, right? But I want to say we've talked about it in the past. Like, I tend to now give up my time for her, right? Even like something real simple that I've brought up before, kids' birthday parties of her friends that I don't really know,
Hmm.
you know, for her to be able to have a better time, and get time with her friends that she might not get regularly. I'm willing to go along and, you know, do my share of taking care of the kids. Um, I don't know. Is there anything off the top of your head that you can think of in that realm of giving to our wives?
Yeah, I think the why is exactly what you said because of expectations.
Mm-hmm.
If we, you can't be disappointed if you don't have expectations. And if you don't want to bring disappointment into your marriage, this is an area where um, we can learn how to give. If you can learn, if you can learn this area, it will help your marriage just be a lot more free. You're more free to just be if you're giving without expecting anything back. And that sets up for a lot more freedom throughout your marriage.
Yeah,
Hope that makes sense.
I think so. Um, and talking about that freedom, if you guys get on the same page with your giving and even put your giving like into a budget, there's something very freeing about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was just thinking about that when you're talking about the money aspect. I mean, we have a line item in our budget for that. Um, and we actually even have a line item now for that we're working through is like giving even to our kids.
Okay.
Um, because it can be within marriage and family, right? If you the essentials are what they are. You know, everyone needs clothes, everyone needs food. But for I'll just let you guys into my mind. Um, my wife is a giver and she just likes the joy of people receiving. So she will give. So when she's out, she'll just pick up different things. So, I mean, we have our kids, we have our god kids, we have other people's kids, right? So it could be very it could be very stressful for me not having that in the budget and just seeing, because it almost feels like breaking the budget for me. Because for me, it's like it's not a need, and like
Mm.
why do all these kids need these things? Like, but it's more so just showing love and compassion. And some of the kids that we, some of the kids that we bless, like they don't get that from their parents. It's not a random, like they don't ever get random gifts. Like people don't show them just random acts of kindness. So I see the value of it like afterwards, but I'm
Right.
like, why is this Amazon package showing up? I thought we went to Target to get two things, right?
Mm.
Those type of things. But if
Yep.
it's in
Yep.
the budget, that frees me up to give free, more freely. That makes sense. And yeah, if you're on the same page, it just makes it a lot better in marriage, I'll say.
Yeah. And man, it's funny because there was a time not too long ago where a friend of hers had a house fire and I believe legitimately lost everything. Oh, by the way, she was pregnant at the time. And so my giving kind of kicked in and I knew right off the rip that Katie was going to want to help. So without having her have to come to me and say, "Hey, is this okay?" or whatever, I went to her and I said, "Hey, what are we going to do for her?" You know what I mean?
Mm,
Because I like obviously I felt bad for their situation, but I was always just kind of, or I was also just kind of thinking of my wife and knowing how her heart sort of bleeds for her friends sometimes. I was like, let's do something. Like even if it's like cash, right? Because some in a scenario like that, like cash is a huge help.
hmm
Um, thankfully we had a lot of you know, clothes from our kids that we were able to give to her. Um, I don't know if we got them a car seat or something along those lines, but I don't know. I don't want to say we went above and beyond because we gave within our means, but I don't know, man. Like we that type of giving, you don't expect anything in return, right? I want to shift a little bit while we have a little bit of time. To me, my realization has been that giving is kind of selfish, right? So I may give to people and not expect anything in return physically, but what I actually receive is fulfillment of like this fulfillment of joy of seeing someone be satisfied by something that they've received, which I'm sure your wife is kind of what you were talking about with
hmm
your wife. Um, if I can fulfill a need, I I love to do that, right? Especially if someone doesn't have. Um, but I think maybe there's a balance there as well, like to know that you can't get anything back in return
Yeah.
because someone just doesn't have the means and giving. Um, I don't know. So maybe there's like this area of finding which areas to give. So that's the scenario where you're not going to receive anything. So giving without expectation is just automatic.
But I guess, is that really giving without expectation? If you expect
That's kind of the point I
that
was getting.
that there will be that hit of dopamine in your system when you feel good about that was a good gift, and I just want it to be a good gift.
Right.
So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess technically it's not expectations, but you're not expecting it to be transactional like that. Someone has to be like, oh, now I have to do this for you, or because you did this for me, now I have to give. It's more just for the sake of giving. And I think that comes with serving your wife too, right? Like there's just a level, you're just giving of yourself,
Yeah.
and I think if we think about what is a way to help our wives be better people, it's just to give ourselves and to show up. And if she never says thank you, if she never acknowledges what you've done, can you still give up yourself and sacrifice for your wife?
You got there. We're in the meat of this conversation now. Oh
Yeah,
man,
and
that's
that's real.
good. Yeah, that's very
That's
real.
so real.
Um, I wow. Okay, so I don't know that I necessarily need to hear that from my wife, but she shows her appreciation in other ways, right? So with that being the case, I don't think I need to hear those words, but I know she's appreciative. Um, like for example, if you know she's off doing something and she comes back and sees me doing the dishes and she didn't have to ask me to do it, right? Like she's coming up to me and she's hugging me, she's kissing me, and she doesn't have to say thank you, but I know that's what that means.
Right, but I'm saying what if say if it's not words. I'm saying if there's no acknowledgement and if she never gave whatever version of those words are, however she shows gratitude, but maybe that's better. If she never shows gratitude,
Yeah.
would you still give up yourself for your wife?
Ooh. Um. I me being me, yes, but I think I'm in a place now in my marriage where I think that I probably do need that exhibition of gratitude to some extent. And so I'm probably going to have a conversation with her about that. So that is to say, I don't think that it is always appropriate to give without expectation. Just to come full circle with it, right? There's a time and place for it, um, but maybe it's not always possible.
Well, yeah, I just posed that question because in a healthy marriage,
Mm-hmm.
that gratitude would be given.
Right.
And it's not like you're expecting it per se, but if you're both giving of yourself, it's automatically going to come back, right? So
Right.
that could be an indicator if normally you receive some form of gratitude, but you have given and you do not receive that gratitude, an indicator that something is awry, right? Something might need to be addressed, right? Like what's
Yeah.
going on, what's going on in your world, has anything happened? And it could not be you. Like obviously if it's a bad day, that's fine. But I'm saying if it's habitually happening where she's just stopped giving gratitude, that's like, oh, we need to address this.
Yeah.
So and I really just posed that to see, it's just a question to think about, right? How down for you, or how down for your marriage are you? If we're talking about giving with expectations, like how deep does this go? And the
Right.
deepest level it can go is if you're talking about if not expecting anything, like what's the deepest level of unexpectation can you go that's not receiving gratitude from your life partner?
And this kind of goes back to the conversation we had the other day, right? You were talking about how you saw the father there at the school and you're like, oh man, this would be great, right? And then you're like, well, he's just being a dad, right? So what if that was the expectation? Like you're doing the dishes, you're cleaning, and all this, right? And your wife's mindset was like, yeah, like you live here, so
Right.
Congratulations for doing what needs to be done.
Right.
Right. Um, ouch.
Yeah. So
But
it's
and I think I was
mindset.
kind of
Yeah.
living on the extremes of like getting gratitude all the time,
Yeah.
or never getting gratitude, where realistically it's somewhere in the middle, where it's like you may not always get the show or exhibition of gratitude for every little thing you do, which
Right.
I don't feel like I do need or should need, because like we were just saying, a part of it is just like adulting.
Yeah. And I think that's where I wanted to land, right? Knowing that you don't need it or that you can freely give of yourself to your wife, um, generally speaking, and not expect anything. It's nice when she shows gratitude, but it could just be you're just living. Right.
Right.
Right. I mean, we don't have to celebrate mediocrity or celebrate regular life things, right?
Yeah.
Because the truth is, you should be doing the dishes if
Yeah.
she's doing other things and the dishes need done. Just using that example, right?
Yeah.
You should know how to put your clothes on your kid because they need clothes and you're their parent,
Yeah.
right? Right. Now, hair's a whole nother thing, but you should at least be able to ponytail if you have a girl, brush down if you have a boy.
Hey,
Right.
I'm learning the French braid, so it's all good.
Right. So, um, but again, it's just focus and how can you, what are you expecting?
Mm,
What do you think should happen? And that's the thing, no expectations. Like, if no one ever, if you were like, quote unquote, like the elves, right? And no one saw the things that you did behind the scenes, would you be okay with that? Like,
mm.
if things just got done and no one knew, oh, how did that happen? You're not the ones, it's me, I did it, it's me. No, you're just like, yeah, I mean, that did get done. What's the next thing?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that's a good conversation, man. I'm glad we had that conversation, because it actually made me realize that as much as I thought that I give without expectation, there's a lot of areas where I receive something, and maybe it is more transactional than I thought. Um, and then being methodical about the areas where I can give without expectation because I have to, right? Um, is a way for me to accomplish that and experience it. But you know, there's probably still a little bit that I'm receiving just because I know I'm fulfilling a need, and that fulfills me.
And that's okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Definitely. But hey guys, we want to invite you to link up with us on our social medias. That's Searching Marriage is Tougher. You can find us on Instagram. We can continue we can continue conversations over there, or you can give us topic ideas, or just be a part of that community. You can do that also on Facebook. Searching Marriage is Tougher than Woodpecker Lips. I believe it may also come up just Searching Marriage is Tougher as well. And then our website, if you'd like to be a guest, marriageistuffer.com. There's a little form for you to fill out there. So use any of those options. But what we do want to leave you with is take action and make a choice to be better, right?
That's it.